Hey friends, it's Keisha Devaney here. For my project, we're going to be making these little felt ornaments, and we're going to be using cookie cutters, okay? So let me show you the cookie cutters. So here's the cookie cutter I used for him. Here's the cookie cutter I used for my tree. And then my snowman is somewhere. Here he is. And here's my snowman. That's Tucker in the background. He's playing along as well. So this is the type of project that can be either super simple, or you can make it as complicated and more embellished as you like, okay? It's totally up to you. So like on this guy, I added lace there and made a little nose out of felt and embellished a flower, and then made some, added sticks for his arms and a little ribbon. This guy got sequins and just some extra stitching in here. And then this guy did like stitching around the sides. Mr. Tucker. Anyway, I'm just saying, you can make them super simple where you're not doing a lot of work and you can really make them quickly, or you can spend time on them and have fun doing that, because that's what I love as well. All right, so what are we going to need? All right, so we're going to need felt to start with. You can go to the craft store and pick up kids felt. I actually like to use a felt that I buy on Etsy, and it's called Heather, as in the girl's name, Heather felt. I just like the colors that it comes in. It's a little softer, but really there's not a lot of difference except for maybe the coloring, so don't feel like you have to go and order this. Just use what you have on hand, or just run out to the store really quickly. It's not a big deal. You'll need some kind of glue. And any glue you have on hand is good, just like a white tacky glue, okay? You're going to need a cookie cutter. So I think I'm going to do a couple hearts. And I'm going to be giving it to my sister. She likes purple, so I'm going to go with a purple felt. If you're going to be doing any kind of stitching, you will need some embroidery floss. And of course, you'll need some scissors. And then something to trace your cookie cutter with. I usually use a black pen. I don't mind seeing the lines. I'm fine with that. So something like a Sharpie's fine. And I think that's it. If you want to add embellishments, of course you can grab all that stuff later. I have some sequins that I have on hand. Like I said, the lace here, sticks. This is just more felt that I stitched in, and that's just a little piece of wire. And before I closed the back of the felt to the black, I just stuck the flower in and stitched around it. Okay, these are this is more felt. You can use buttons. Really, you can be just creative. Okay, so I'm not going to demo all these, because I just want this to be super fun and kind of like your own ideas. It's basically the same idea though. We're going to use a cookie cutter. We're going to draw the shape. We're going to cut it out, and you're going to need a front and a back. And, and you also need a little bit of stuffing. So some kind of stuffing for the inside of your piece. So like polyfill or scrap fabric was fine. Those kind of things, okay? And a needle. And if I come across anything as I'm working that I added or forgot that we might need, I will bring that up. Okay, let's get started. So eventually at some point when you're about finished with your ornament, you're going to need something to hang it with. And that can be ribbon, string. You can use your embroidery floss, really whatever you have on hand. And if you want to play with some trim stuff, I found this trim that I thought was pretty. So I was thinking maybe I'll, when I'm done making my heart and cutting it out and sewing it and stuff like that, I will add that, and then I could hang a bell. I could hang a couple bells. That would look cute. And then also my stash, I found these are sequins, but they're already on a string, so it is like a trim. That might be kind of fun. So yeah, let's get going. Okay, so first you're going to do is trace out your cookie cutter. And remember, you're going to need a front and a back. So you're going to cut out 2 pieces. If you want to mass produce this, you could draw a couple cookie cutters at a time and work on them in like a batch. That would be kind of fun too. So maybe I'll do a couple of these. And again, if you don't like that big black line, you can use something else, that maybe a pencil. I do find it hard to see lines when I'm working on felt, so I do use like a bold pen. Maybe you can find something finer than this, but like I said, it really doesn't bother me, that sort of stuff, because I'll be stitching and accentuating it, and so I'm good with it. When you're picking out your cookie cutters, I would keep in mind of a lot of open space like this one, okay? And I would avoid things like this guy. So this is like a Santa, but I think in the end, it's going to be a lot of work for you to articulate all that. Like, you know, you're going to have to make the sack so it looks different, and of course his Santa hat, and, you know, his boots. And if you're willing to go the distance on that, you know, you can go for that. But I find that extra work kind of tedious versus just sort of being able to play on my own and add stuff as I feel like it. So that's just my a little advice or tip. All right, so let's cut these out. So let's see, I think I'll just cut this in half and fold it. If you're the type of person that needs to pen things, you know, you can have a couple pens handy. When we stitch our ornaments closed, this will be the stitch line, so you don't necessarily need a seam allowance. And one of the reasons that I like working on felt, though, is after you cut it, you don't have to deal with a lot of fraying, so that's nice too. All right, so we can just cut this out. And since this line is so thick, you know, I can kind of cut half of that line off, which won't make it so heavy. No, not any big technique here of cutting, but here we go. All right, so we've got my heart shape. Now, you're going to need to unpin it because all the work that you do to the front needs to be done first before you sew it together. And so then here's a thought too that I'm having as I just move those apart. I could flip these over and have that line on the back, or flip like this, so that now I don't have any lines to see. Okay, so problem solved there. All right, so what do I want to do to the front of this? I think I'm going to get out this trim. And like I said, this is really not a super complicated project. I just, you know, I'm just here to encourage you to do something fun and whimsical. And when I make these, it brings me back to the time when I was in college, and I was home on Christmas break, and my parents had just moved to a new area, and I didn't know anyone in that area. I didn't have any friends there, and so I was a little bored, and I decided to make little gingerbread people for to keep me busy, and it was so fun. And I still have them. I gave a whole bunch out for Christmas gifts, and my family still have them, so they're really kind of fun, and I love having that that memory of that time. All right, so I'm going to cut this ribbon out, and then I can use a little bit of my glue just to tack it down. You can also use a glue stick, okay? Glue sticks are great for just like a temporary tacking down so that they're not moving. I think though, if you are not someone who's going to be doing any stitching, I'm not sure that I would use a glue stick to hold my pieces together. I don't think that would work very well, but for temporary tacking down of elements, it would work just fine. So I've got my needle threaded, and I'm not really going to do much complicated stitching. I really don't know how to do a lot of that kind of stitching. I just like to do straight stitching, which is up from the back and down the front. We just got caught in my knot. Just pull that. There we go. And just enough stitching to get my trim down. And I think that looks so pretty. She's gonna love it. All right, so I'm gonna keep stitching, and in the video I'll speed this up a little bit because you get the idea. Up from the back, pull it, and go down the front, pull it. So now that I've got my trim sewn down, I'm just playing with the bells and making decisions about what I want. And I'm kind of playing with, 3 or 2, and eventually I just decided that I like just 1. And then the other thing that I decided to do is I'm going to do a little stitching at the bottom of this heart. Just a bunch of little stitch lines, kind of trying to mimic the bottom of the trim, which sort of looked a little like a scalloped edge. And I'm going to use white, which is going to really stand out and make it pop. So I think that'll look really nice. Yeah, I'm just using my needle to show the little scallop lines from the trim. And as I started stitching on this, I realized it was going to be really hard to kind of make my own scalloped edge without necessarily taking a pen and really making it in a pattern. But I still like how it turned out at the end. So I'll stitch on this for a little bit, and then I'm going to speed it up, and we'll see how it looks at the end of this. Okay, so now that I'm done doing all my stitching in here, I'm going to sew my bell on. I decided to just use 1 bell. And just be aware too, though, that when you stitch a lot like this into felt, it's going to make it shrink a little bit. So don't be surprised when you go match it up with your piece that it's a little smaller now. It's not a super huge big deal, but just so you're kind of aware of that. So let's get this bell on. Just going to put it in the center and stitch it on. Easier said than done. There we go. My thread's a little long, so it made a knot, so I'm gonna cut that loop out in just a minute instead of trying to untie the knot. Okay. Just leave that for now. I can always just make it into a knot and then cut the ends off. So, if you're going to give this as a gift, give something like this as a gift, I would on the back of it maybe do a little date, so you can border the date in there and maybe your initials. I think that would be really cute. So I will do that. You have to do it before you close them, but for now I'm just gonna take a look at this. Looks pretty good. And so then my next step would be to start stitching the sides all the way around and then inserting a little bit of the polyfill. But I think I will go ahead and off camera, I'm going to go ahead and stitch the date and my initials on there, and then we'll come back. All right, that looks really nice. Okay, so I'm going to start closing the heart. This time I'm going to use a black thread. And put your knot on the inside, which means in between the two pieces, just go in the middle. I might put a little pin there. And then I have a little edging there, so I'm just going to trim that. That's from the front piece shrinking a little bit. Just a little trim of that. So what I do is I just start doing some stitching. And then when I kind of get 3/4 of the way down back to the bottom, I'll stop and start adding some stuffing. Put your stitches on the, when you're closing it, a little close together so that when you do stuff it, they're not poking out the holes. All right, so I'm just a little past the halfway mark on my heart. So I thought I'd go ahead and put a little stuffing at the top. Oops, I got a pin there. I don't stuff mine like super firm. I like them to be a little soft. So then I'll stuff in there and kind of move it around a little bit. This helps me kind of gauge how much more I want to put in there. And now I'm going to start closing it up again. And I'll put a little bit more in there, but then it's going to be almost enough for me. Okay, then I'm just going to finish it off, close it up. And I just realized I forgot the hanger, which I usually like to just slip inside while I'm stitching. But that's okay. I can just add it separately, not a big deal. That's kind of one of those mistakes that I make over and over and over again. So obviously my brain doesn't want to do that. And then I'm just taking a look at it. There's a little pucker over here. And I also need to make my knot, but I don't really want a knot on the back. So I think I'm just going to feed the needle up in that direction. So I can kind of tackle that. I mean, it's not a big deal, but while we're here, let's just tack that down. That could be a little spot where there's extra fabric on the back too. And yeah, so to hide my needle, I'm going to go over here in this, to hide my knot, I'm just going to go over here in this area where it's got the trim. And then when I make the knot, it's just going to be not as obvious, just a little hidden under there. All right, so if I wanted to really make the heart shape more defined, I could come in here and do like a little stitch kind of in here and pull it down. So that's something I could do. I mean, really that's just for aesthetics. But you can kind of see a little puckering on the back, and that's because there's extra fabric there. So, I mean, I can go around and sort of do a straight running stitch on the sides to fix that if I want to. That wouldn't be a problem. And then let me just put on the hanger. I'm just sewing these two threads together to create a loop. Hard for me to see. So while I'm here with the thread, putting on the loop, the hanger, it might make it look more heart-shaped, or I could use the stitching while I'm here to sort of do that. Yes, a little running stitch down the side here. Could make it worse, could make it better. That's what experimenting is all about. And then I'll eventually get to the point where I'm like tired of fussing with it and just be done. All right, I think that's cute. I like that. All right, so again, I'm just gonna hide my little knot in here. And trim that off. Yeah, I think that's really cute. I'm really happy with that. All right, so I'm going to do one more little video, and that's how to make a snowman nose, because I have a feeling people are going to want to know how to make that. So I'll be right back. All right, so this is how I made my snowman nose, and I really didn't know how to make one, so I just was sort of playing around. And so I just took a small piece of felt. Let me make this a little smaller. And I just rolled it. So there's a little roll there and a little roll there. And then I tacked it down with some stitching. And I haven't really made a secure knot yet, so I'm going to do that now. Again, you know, I'm just playing around. I'm experimenting. There really isn't a lot of right or wrong rules. I'm sure you can even go on Google and look up, how do I make a snowman nose out of felt? And see what they tell you to do. And then I just trimmed it. Made the bottom kind of straight. Took away that curve, this sticking out there. We don't need that. And then I can stitch. There's going to be a hole there, so I can stitch in there. But then you're left with this kind of little cone shape. Okay? Super easy. You don't like the first one you make, then make another one. Keep making them until you like them or whatever. And then I just glued that on. Very easy. Where's my guy? Here he is. On this one I used orange thread. You can see it. And maybe it looks like I did do a little tacking there with the stitches. Or you can glue it on. Okay? Well, anyway, I can't wait to see your little cookie cutter ornaments and what cookie cutters you picked out. And, of course, if you have any questions, you can leave a comment on my video, and I'll do my best to answer them for you. Okay? All right, Merry Christmas.